Let's cross to Perth now and catch up with the Shadow Defence Minister Andrew Hastie, his first television interview since getting that appointment. Congratulations on the job, Andrew. Of course, you were Assistant Defence Minister in government, but even though you're in opposition, it must fulfil an ambition for you to actually be the leading spokesperson on defence for the coalition.
Good afternoon, Chris. Good to be with you and your viewers. Yes, it's a great honour to be the Shadow Defence Minister working closely with the Opposition Leader Peter Dutton and the rest of the Shadow Cabinet. And I'm looking forward to holding the Albanese government to account in my role as Opposition Defence Minister.
You know, a big part of what you were trying to do in government was to modernise and build up the hardware and the personnel in the Australian Defence Forces. How can you help to do that? How can you make sure Labor does that now that they're in power?
Well, as I made clear with the statement I put out on Sunday, my job is to make sure that the government gives clear direction to the ADF, that it's well led and that it's properly resourced with new capabilities. And those capabilities have to be delivered in a timely manner. Now, under our time in government, we commenced the biggest rebuild of the ADF since the Second World War. We invested a lot of money into new capabilities. We're growing it by 20,000 people over the next decade. We're growing our cadet program. And of course, we're investing $270 billion over the next decade on new capabilities, strike capabilities mainly. And who can forget, of course, the AUKUS agreement that was struck in September last year, the biggest single defence and foreign policy achievement since ANZUS 70 years ago.
Yeah, that's certainly a feather in your cap, a significant achievement. It's been in focus today, though, because Peter Dutton's taken the unusual liberty to put into print some details about he was going to try and use that AUKUS agreement to purchase the first couple of nuclear-powered submarines to fill that gap while we could gear up to build the rest of them. Why did Peter Dutton feel the need to put that information into the public arena?
Well, the Defence Minister, Richard Marles, gave a fairly meandering interview during the week to the ABC where he said that we'd left defence in a disgrace, which is so far from the truth. We struck the most significant defence agreement since ANZUS in AUKUS to deliver nuclear-powered submarines for the ADF, which is part of our deterrence strategy. And Mr Dutton was well on the way. So Richard Marles came out and attacked us and said we'd left it in a bad way, which is far from the truth. In fact, Peter Dutton had a plan to deliver 2 of those nuclear boats, Virginia-class submarines, by 2030. And it's concerning because Mr Marles also said that he's considering, or he's open-minded about a diesel-powered submarine to plug a gap between the submarines now and the nuclear class that were potentially will be delivered in 2040. So he's got some serious questions to answer, I think, as the new Minister for Defence. Does he have conviction about AUKUS? Is he committed to delivering them? We actually really need to get on with the job because, as we've seen, the strategic environment around us is deteriorating. We need these submarines as soon as possible, and that's why Peter Dutton went out and corrected the record.
So as I speculated earlier in the program, you put this information, the opposition put this information into the public arena because you want to keep the government's toes to the fire on this. You want to make sure that Marles follows that same plan?
That's right. We need these nuclear-powered submarines as soon as possible. The plan was to get 2 by 2030 direct from the factory or the production line in Connecticut in the United States, get them into the water, and then get a subsequent 8 out to 2040. And Richard Marles is now talking about, doing it in 20 years' time. We need these submarines as soon as possible. Like I said, we need a Minister for Defence who has conviction, is singularly focused on delivering these submarines, and he cannot waste a single day. So unhelpful comments about, other options of, diesel submarines really sends the wrong messages to both the US and the UK. We need to get on with the job, and he needs to deliver.
Well, there was a pretty surprising response from Richard Marles today in The Australian where he attacked Peter Dutton for putting this information into the public arena, said it was against the national interest and said it was inconsistent with what he was saying in government. But if you have a look at this interview, part of this interview with Sky News' Andrew Clennell from September, it's exactly what Peter Dutton was talking about. Here it is.
Will you consider leasing or buying existing submarines from the US and UK in the meantime?
The short answer is yes. I mean, there's all of that discussion to take place in the next 12 to 18 months. And already, obviously, I've met with a number of my counterparts here from the Secretary down in terms of those that are making decisions, and we'll have further discussions with the Brits as well.
Well, there it is in public. Yes, that's what the government wants to do, and there's a lot of negotiation to take place there. So Richard Marles must be terribly badly informed if he wasn't aware of that, and surely he would have been briefed on these developments immediately he was sworn in as Defence Minister.
Well, he's either been briefed and he's not across it, or he's hedging his bets and talking about another option, the diesel-powered submarine, which he speculated about. So he's got to commit to this. Otherwise, it looks like the Labor government is crab walking away from AUKUS. And as I said, we need a Minister of Defence who has conviction, who is committed to delivering these nuclear-powered submarines, and in a very quick amount of time. We need to get these. We need to get some boats in the water by the end of this decade, and that's what we're going to focus on as the opposition, holding this government to account on this very significant defence and foreign policy framework we've put in place, AUKUS, to deliver these nuclear submarines.